started filming this video on Saturday. It is now Wednesday. I am here now to tell you how that happened and catch you up on the entire process so far of me making this video, and then we will go from there because I'm still not done. A while ago on my channel, I made a video where I tried to make a dress. It is right here actually. You can go watch that video if you want. It was a fun time. I had fun, but the dress is, not great. So I felt the need to redeem myself. And I've been watching a lot of thrift flipping videos on YouTube recently, and I was like, hey, maybe if I make something out of clothing that already exists, instead of trying to make something from scratch when I had this little experience, it will go better and I won't lose all of my self-confidence every time I look at my sewing machine. Like a week or two ago, my friend and I went thrift shopping and I got 3 dresses, which were way too big, had fabric that I liked, but needed some severe revisions in order to be something that I actually want to wear. On Saturday and Sunday, which I'm gonna explain to you in a minute, and then today, I am trying to thrift flip these 3 dresses into something that I actually like. I started sewing on Saturday, as I said, and I was originally planning to tell you what I was doing on Saturday, but for some reason, I just really did not feel like doing anything that day and simply could not get myself to speak. But anyway, the first piece I altered was this patterned dress. I really liked the pattern of this dress and it has decent material, and I also liked that this dress is not only a bit big on me, but also very, very long. Like, this thing comes down to my toes. I would trip over this if I tried to wear it anywhere. My plan for this dress was to make it fitted, much shorter, cut off the current sleeves to give it a square neckline, and then use the extra fabric from the skirt to make long, puffy sleeves that cinched at the wrists. I started by cutting off the strappy sleeve things that it had to begin with. Then I estimated where I would need to cut the dress to make it a mini dress rather than a safety hazard. I would recommend overestimating this because when I cut this, I swear the fabric unstretched and got shorter. So then I quickly ran into 2 problems. One, like I said, is that the dress was too short, and the other was that for some reason, I still have not grasped the insane amount of fabric that it takes to make full-length sleeves. So basically, I did not have enough fabric to make full-length sleeves. I took some measurements of my arms and made a sleeve pattern, and then realized that I didn't have enough fabric for that pattern, so to solve both of these problems, I revised my sleeve design. The sleeves would still be puffy, but they wouldn't be full-length, and I would use the extra fabric to make the dress a socially acceptable length. Because this dress was already sewn to be semi-form-fitting on top, and the fabric is the very slightest bit stretchy, I decided to not try to make it any more perfectly fitted in the front, since that's pretty much guaranteed to end in disaster, and instead I tried on the dress inside out. Okay, well actually I didn't film when it was inside out, I filmed when it was right side out, but then I realized my mistake and had to redo the whole thing with it inside out, so let's just pretend that it's inside out in this clip. Anyway, with the dress on, I pinned down the sides so it fit better, and through some scientific miracle, I got the dress off without ripping any of the pins out. I didn't bother to change my thread because, if I didn't already mention, I was not really feeling it on Saturday. But anyway, I started by sewing down the seams that I pinned with the dress on, after kind of making sure they were even and symmetrical and everything. I cut off the excess fabric from these seams, and then moved on to the hems. The top I just pinned down and hemmed like a normal hem. For the bottom hem, I took this loop of fabric directly from the skirt of the original dress and hemmed one edge of it because it had 2 raw edges. I pinned the other edge into the bottom of the skirt, keeping right sides together. Because this loop of fabric is bigger than the rest of the skirt, I made sure to start by pinning the front, back, and the 2 sides into place so it will be cinched equally all the way around. And then I sewed this together. After that, I moved on to the sleeves. I started by just sewing down the sides, so the sleeves were sort of these oddly shaped tubes. From there, I wanted to make both ends of the sleeves cinched so they would be puffy, so I took this super thin elastic and measured first around my arm where the sleeves would end, and then around my arm at the top. No reasonable mathematical calculations were done here. I just kind of estimated what I thought would be a decent sleeve hole size that would stay up without suffocating my arm. Fun, kind of unrelated story. I sewed a denim jacket. It's right here. I sewed this denim jacket the night before the SAT, after not sewing anything for like 8 years, and the next day I wore it to school, and because I made the armholes slightly too small and didn't realize it, my right arm lost circulation midway through me taking the SAT, and I couldn't take the jacket off because underneath it I was wearing a dress that had like strap sleeves that were against the dress code, so I just had to sit through the SAT with my right arm dying while I was trying to write my like little essay question thing. And then my arm hurt for the rest of the day. Make your armholes big enough. That's my only reasonable sewing advice. Make them so much bigger than you think you need to. I cut lengths of elastic, the lengths of the tops, and ends of the sleeves, and decided to actually double it everywhere because it was so thin. Then I basically hemmed both ends of the sleeves, but made sure to leave this tunnel at the edge and an opening on both sides. I tied the elastic to a safety pin and fed it through this tunnel. This took me like 6 tries because I kept losing one end of the elastic and having to pull it all out and start over again. When I did get it, I tied the ends of the elastic together and then sewed the knot to the fabric so it wouldn't come undone. Then I just sewed up the hole that I left in the hem and had this adorable puffy little sleeve. At this point, it was getting dark and I was getting tired, so I went to sleep and decided to pick things up the next day. Okay, day 2, Sunday. I still did not want to be talking and returned to my sewing with one sleeve sewed. I sewed the second sleeve just like I did the first, and then attached both sleeves to the dress just at the bottoms in order to preserve the square neckline that I wanted. And that was it for this dress. This dress certainly turned out better than the last dress that I made, which is all I can really ask for at this point. The sleeves could certainly be better, but they're sleeves, they're one of the world's great mysteries, and I am just beginning to understand them. I think I will actually wear this dress, at least to take photos in, so that's at least a small success for me. The second dress was also ridiculously too long. That's going to become a theme. I adore the color of this dress, and it's very nice material. It also has a collar, which I love, and the sleeves to go with the collar. It had this thin belt, which I didn't use for this, but will definitely use for something else. I honestly liked the top of this dress as it was, so I decided to keep it and just change the skirt. My plan for this dress was to take inspiration from the collared shirt and tennis skirt trend, which I love, and make a pleated skirt from the skirt material before attaching it back to the bodice. To start, I cut off the bodice and set it aside for later, and then completely deconstructed the skirt, like, more than was necessary. I cut out all of these separate pleats and then got confused because even though I thought I knew how to make a pleated skirt, it turns out I did not. I gave up, confidence shattered, and watched a video from this YouTuber Vintage Thirsty, whose channel I love and will link below, on how to make a pleated skirt. It turns out I just needed one long piece of fabric, but since I love to cause more work for myself, I cut out like 15 of them, and then I had to sew them all together into a singular piece of fabric. And once I did that, I ignored all of the math that you're supposed to do to make pleats and just used the basic method, which is to fold the top of the pleats over and then pin a bit lower down where the pleats will end, which should be shifted less far over than the top of the pleat. That probably made no sense, but this never claimed to be a tutorial. We're all struggling here. Once I pinned my skirt, I proceeded to actually thread my sewing machine with matching thread, since these seams would be visible. Then I sewed down each pleat from the top pin to the second pin. Almost at the end of sewing the pleats, my bobbin ran out. Bobbin threading clips. They are my singular favorite thing to edit. Then I finished sewing the pleats. I have no idea how this happened because the skirt fit before I sewed it, but when I tried it on after sewing it, it was somehow 2 pleats too big, so I cut them off in utter confusion. Then I had to find a way of closing the back of the skirt so I could still get in and out of it, and instead of doing the reasonable thing and using a zipper, I found these buttonholes and buttons from the bottom of the original dress and sewed them into the skirt in such a way that is hard to explain and definitely something that you should never do. Like, just use a zipper. This didn't end up working anyway. But basically, you couldn't see the buttons or buttonholes, but you could still button and unbutton them. They were incredibly hard to button, which was not the last of their problems, but we will get to that. The final thing I did to the skirt was just hem it. Once I had a finished skirt, I wanted a thick belt. I cut some strips of fabric from what I still had and sewed them all together into one long strip. Then I pinned the skirt to one side of the strip, sewing them together and hemming the rest of that edge of the belt. I did basically the same thing to attach the belt to the bodice, but I also had to make sure to fold parts of the bodice over, basically making little pleats here and there, since the bodice is bigger around than the belt. Once I sewed the bodice to the rest of the dress, this dress was basically done, and I did manage to get in it. However, because the bodice and skirt have openings on opposite sides, the waist could never get bigger, which made this dress so hard to get on. I did somehow manage to get it on and somehow managed to button up the buttons, but after that I decided it was too difficult to get on, so I started by just ripping out the buttons and buttonholes, cut into the back of the bodice just slightly, and then just bit the bullet and hand sewed in a zipper, which left me with this. I wish the pleats of this dress were a little more pleated, but for the most part I like it. It's nice just as an outfit by itself, but I also really like it with a crew neck over it and the collar pulled out for the true collared shirt, crew neck, pleated skirt look. That night I also started on the third and final flip, which was this dress. The pattern on this dress is so gorgeous. It also has 2 layers of fabric, which I'm just going to pretend are 1 layer, at least for now. I wanted to make this dress into a separate top and skirt, but since I didn't have a plan for the top, and that's also very intimidating, I started with the skirt. I cut below the zipper of the dress, having estimated that this would make a skirt between the lengths of mini and midi, which is what I wanted. Then I cut off the sleeves, straps, I don't know, these ugly, confusing things. I wanted to use these as a waistband for the skirt. I cut the 2 straps to lengths that, when combined, was a little bit bigger than my waist to account for seam allowance. Then I started sewing these pieces together, and this was when everything simultaneously went wrong. First, I attempted to thread the needle and this happened? How does this happen? Then my needle broke for no reason. It just wanted to make my day bad. Also, when it broke, the pointy end that broke off flew off and hit me in the eye. I'm not making this up, you can see it in the video, let us replay that. I changed the needle and then realized that my camera was dying, so I went to plug it in, and when I went to plug it in, I saw that the part that you plug the plug into was broken because earlier that day my entire tripod fell over, and even though I thought that everything was fine because my camera was still filming, apparently it was not. So through some complete miracle, I don't know how this worked, but my dad put a piece of metal on the end of the plug and it made the camera charge, so it can at least charge for now, which is how I'm filming today. So now here we are, Wednesday, day 3. I have the final flip to finish. While my camera was on life support, I used my nervous energy to start pinning the waistband to the skirt. The important thing here was to make sure it was gathered neatly and evenly, and make sure that both layers of the skirt matched up. Once this was done, I took this zipper I bought and cut it down to the right size for the skirt and sewed it in, once again by hand because I don't own a zipper foot. Now the terrifying part, trying to make a form-fitting top. I didn't have a lot of fabric left, so I started by cutting off the bottom to use for straps, since making sleeves was out of the question. I also cut off the top to make it flat. To make the top fit similar to the first dress, I put it on inside out and pinned down the sides. I sewed along these seams and cut off the extra fabric. Then I hemmed the pieces I cut to be straps and attached them to the top. Once I had sewed all of those up, this top was done, and this was my final thrift flip. These pieces are great together, but I also just like this skirt with this white top, or with this graphic tee to really throw the word juxtaposition in everyone's face. The top I'm loving with these pink jeans I bought, which honestly need some altering themselves, or with this orange skirt. I think this went decently. I don't really have anything else to say here, so like the video if you want to, subscribe perhaps. I would love the validation. And comment anything that you would like to tell me. Hopefully, I will see you next week. Okay, bye.